Hello guys, welcome back. So now let's talk about HTML attributes. What are they? And then I'm going to give you some key information that you need to know about attributes in HTML. So HTML attributes are special words which provide additional information about attributes or the HTML elements. So we can also say that by definition, attributes in HTML are the modifiers of the HTML elements. And each element or each tag in HTML can have attributes. So attributes which will define the behavior of that particular tag or element. Attributes should always be applied within the start tag. So you can't write an attribute in the closing tag. Okay, so that's the rule. Another thing that we can talk about is that attributes should always be applied with its name and value pair. So an attribute, when you write an attribute, you should specify the name, and then you also need to specify the value that you are going to apply to it, that you're going to assign to that particular attribute. An attribute name or value is always case sensitive, so that's why it's always recommended that you write your attributes in lowercase only. And the last thing that we can note here is that in an HTML tag or element, you can have multiple attributes, but you always need to give space between two attributes in order to distinguish them. So as you can see on the screen here, we have our tags or HTML element, and in the paragraph tag or element here, we have an attribute, the title attribute here, and then we have the value of that particular attribute. So this is how you write your attribute. In the second HTML element here, which is the h1 tag, we have the style attribute, and then we have applied or assigned the value here on the right side, so the color red. All that we have in between the double quotation here is what we call, the value of the attribute. So style here is the name of the attribute, and then colon red is the value. And we also have another attribute, which is the title attribute. As I said earlier on, that in an HTML element, we can have multiple attributes, but you need to put some space between these two attributes here. So that's what we have done just here. So we can also talk about some other attributes. So for example, here we have the style attribute. So this particular style attribute allows us to apply some CSS properties to HTML elements. For example, you can apply color red. As you can see, the heading is showing in red on the screen here because we have applied this particular CSS property. And then we have another attribute, which is the title attribute, which is used as a text tooltip in most browsers. So you can use it if you want to display your text when the user moves the cursor over a link or any text. So for example, here we have the paragraph and we are applying the title attribute. So now when I move my mouse on this particular text, you can see that I have a text tooltip showing this is a paragraph, just as we have specified in here. So the same thing for the heading. If I move my mouse on the text showing on the screen, I have the tooltip showing. Okay, so you can use it with any text or any link to show the description, for example, about the link or the text. But in our example here, we are, we have used it on a paragraph and on a heading. So it could be a link, for example, if you use the title attribute, and you can write the description inside and would be able to see that particular description as a tooltip on your screen. So that's it for the title attribute. We can also talk about another attribute a popular attribute, which is the href attribute. So let's say, for example, here, instead of an italic or instead of a bold tag, it is an hyperlink that we are using here. So if I write like this, and inside I'm going to write href, and I will specify that this needs to redirect the user to Google website, for example. So this is just an example that we're going to have a look at, like this. Now say visit Google, and I will close my anchor tag. Alright, so I have written this particular tag here just because I want to talk about the href tag attribute. Okay, so the href attribute is the main attribute of this particular anchor tag. So the anchor tag is used if you want to create a link. So this particular href attribute gives the link address which is specified in that particular link. So the href attribute provides the hyperlink, and if it is blank, then it will remain in the same page. For example, if we didn't put the href here, or we didn't put any value, we didn't assign any value to this particular href, when we click on this particular link, it will not redirect to anything. We will stay on the page. But since we have put the link here, if you click, it is going to redirect you to that particular link that you have added. So I forgot to add the .com here, so I'm going to say like this, .com. I need to close the double quotes, and I'll say visit Google, and then close. So that's basically another attribute that you can use. So the href attribute is very popularly used with this particular anchor tag, because the href is used to actually make an hyperlink. Okay, another attribute that we can talk about is the source attribute. So the source attribute is usually used with the image tag. So for example, if I say image source, I will say equal double quotes. What we're going to do is we're going to use a particular image on the internet. So I will simply go on Pexels website. We're going to take an image that is free to use, for example, this particular image, and I'm going to copy the image address, and I will paste it here, and I will close this tag. Okay, so this source src here is an attribute, and then on the right side here is the value that we are assigning to the attribute. So the source attribute is one of the important and required attribute of the image tag or the image element, as you can see on the screen here. So it is source, it is actually used to define the source of the image, which is required to display on the browser. And this particular attribute can contain an image in the same directory or an image in another directory. So the image name or source should be correct, else the browser will not be able to display that particular image. So now, as you can see, since we have the correct link, now the image is showing on the screen. So there are some other attributes that we can add. So the source is going to point us to the image, but what if we want to add, for example, another attribute talking about the height of this particular image? So we will say height equal our double quotations, and we say 400, close the quotation. So this is actually going to, modify the height of our image. As you can see, the height has been modified. We can also talk about another attribute, which is the width. So width equal, if we want to increase the width, for example, we will say 600, like this, and then close that. So now you can see that the width has been increased. You can say 500 like this. Okay, so this is another attribute that you can, that we can talk about. Okay, so that's what we can talk about. So now, in this video, we have seen that we have used attributes with double quotes. Now, when you want to assign a value to the attribute, you need to use the double quotations. But in other cases, some people would prefer to use single quotes, when assigning attributes values. Okay? So what we need to note here is that in HTML, it is normal, or it is acceptable to use single quotations, or if you want, you can use double quotations. But what is recommended is to use the double quotations, because most of the people use that, and it's also recommended, because if you use single quotations, sometimes it can confuse a little bit. Okay, so that's it about attributes on this video. And if you have any question, feel free to write them in the comment section. And if you like the video, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this one. So we will meet in the next video. Take care.